Warning, the following footage was captured on a PC legally old enough to vote in the upcoming US election, and it runs about as well as Joe can stay on his bike. I'm also a little brokey right now, so my buy none get one free capture software may occasionally make the footage stutter like it's starring in the hit 2010 film The King's Speech.
I'm coping with...
Nevertheless, please enjoy my ramblings on this game that everybody's probably forgotten about by now. Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga is interesting. And I don't mean interesting like watching a David Attenborough documentary. Rather, it's interesting as if you were suddenly starring in a David Attenborough documentary and you've been cast as one of these birds.
Here we go! Ooh, mamma mia! I'm tired.
When it was first announced that they'd be making a sequel to the hit 2017 video game Hellblade, Senua's internal dating simulator, I was filled to the brim with excitement, along with other substances. I watched the trailer over and over and over again. But why was I fanboying so much over a game that then didn't even come out for another 5 years? What's wrong with me? Well, the answer to that is multifaceted. But to avoid you unwillingly becoming my therapist, especially after what happened to the last one, let's just say the main reason is because the original game is unironically one of my favorite single player games of all time. Now, I'm a very busy man. I appreciate a game that doesn't require me to keep skipping visits to the hospital to visit my dying relatives just to finish the damn thing. My god, the amount of inheritance that I could have had if I'd just been able to stop playing oh no! So I appreciate a concise, well-developed game that leaves an impact more than your average gamer. The original Hellblade is a 7-hour journey through the mind of a severely damaged and complicated person, with exciting visuals, bombastic set pieces, fantastic sound design, puzzles, intuitive free-flowing combat, cool-ass boss fights, and at the heart of it all, deeply interesting and unique mechanics revolving around Senua's real-world condition of psychosis, and the story that comes from exploring that condition in this setting with this character. I love how respectfully the studio approached this harrowing real-world condition, working alongside professionals and real people who live with the condition to create an accurate depiction that shapes the story and gameplay we get to experience. If you want to know more about this stuff, I'd recommend watching either of the mini docs that come with both games, or this amazing video from Leonardo da Sidki, I don't know how you say that, Sidki, covering his own personal relationship with this game's focus on psychosis. In any case, this exploration of psychosis makes Hellblade stand out from the crowd of other single-player action-adventure games, if you can call this an adventure. The gameplay isn't exactly groundbreaking. We've all walked around and looked at things and swung a sword at people before, or as I like to call it, a night out on the town with the lads.
No fucking fighting!
But where Hellblade stands apart is that now there's voices in my head making me question everything I'm seeing or hearing, even warning me of incoming attacks during combat and constantly bickering with each other like my parents. Until the divorce. Crazy hallucination sequences that explore deeply disturbing themes and tell the story through more artistic means that let the player interpret them as they choose, and overall just a genuinely intriguing and new way to experience this kind of a game. The paranoia, the fear, the hopelessness. And yet still, just like Senua, we keep on fighting, keep on going, and by the end of it, you're a changed man. Or woman. Or fisher them.
Yeah, I'd love to be a fisher them.
Back to the Shadow Realm you go, Sam Smith! But as my favourite teacher back in primary school used to tell me, it's time for me to shut the fuck up. Because this video isn't about Senua's sacrifice. It's about...
I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere.
With the first game so groundbreaking and completely unique from everything else being made at the time, mostly, a sequel warrants the exact same thing, which is difficult when you've already done that. The selling point of this now franchise isn't just the character's condition, it's in the developer's boldness to make a game that explores themes that no other games are, or at least not in the way that this game is approaching them. The first game had us battling gods and monsters in hell, whilst we wrestled with our past and our treatment due to who we are, a story that bridged the gap of its time frame to explore how we ourselves deal with our pasts and the voices in our own heads that tell us that we're not good enough. That's a very real issue that I think everyone can relate to nowadays on some level, whether you suffer from a diagnosed mental condition or not. The game was dark and depressing, yet we still triumph at the end and want to keep fighting for others who feel the same as we do, which is a beautiful message that we can all in some way or another translate to our own lives. And again, this was from a video game. So what do you do for a sequel? What new themes do you explore that still hold true to the original game's resolution, yet can develop the story and our main character further than before, whilst also, just being a good game? Well, unfortunately, just like my young self sitting down to take a GCSE paper that I definitely didn't study for, I don't think that this game really knows. Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga is a game best explained by its own box art. And no, I don't mean sensual. There may be too many cooks in this kitchen, and they all want to lend us a hand. The game is a series of muddied influences trying to lead your focus into thinking the game is about one thing, then about another, and then about another, and another, and another, until eventually it just kind of ends.
What the fuck is that?
Having never really delved deeply into any of these influences to establish any kind of standout features or even key talking points to make the game worth talking about at all. At least not by sane people. Despite this game having a similar playtime as the first, it somehow feels way shorter.
Just get over it.
The meandering campaign essentially plays itself. 90% of this footage is of me walking in a straight line just looking forwards. It's the video game equivalent of a drunk driver test by the side of the road. This game isn't allowed the time to develop anything interesting from its presented ideas, and unlike the first game, lacks clear focus on which ideas should be developed with the time available to better enhance the story and gameplay. Essentially, the game has a major identity crisis, just like Senua herself. But unlike Senua, the game can't seem to overcome this to deliver a satisfying sequel, or even just a good game on its own right. And possibly worst of all, it slightly disappointed me. So where did it all go wrong? How could we have possibly foreseen that? It costs fucking how much? Now, just like all my fellow gamers living in this hashtag capitalist society, I'm no stranger to being taken advantage of, but 50 quid for a 7-hour campaign is bold, to say the least. But Mr. Reference, I hear you say in your sweet little voice, what about the side content the game offers to add additional playtime? Wow.
Here, they once said that Loki lies in prison.
Riveting. I guess you could say it's nothing more than branching paths. I'm struggling to ignore it and turn the other cheek. This really ruins the experience. Okay, I'll stop. I think most players like me will, for the most part, ignore this, in air quotes, content. And if you do complete it all, I really hope you enjoyed your extra 2 hours. So the game, unlike the painkiller industry, isn't convincing you to keep coming back over and over again. So the price tag purely encompasses the worth of a single playthrough of its campaign. So is a single playthrough of this game worth 50, I was about to say dollars, 50 pounds? The short answer is no. And well, the longer answer is no. Now, a good question to ask at this point is, why is all of this not an issue for the first game? Which, if you remember, I said had a similar playtime. Well, for one, I think that that game is actually worth replaying, but aside from that, even if you only play it once, which I actually only have at this point, like a full playthrough, I should say. On release, the game was only 24 quid and 99 pence. I don't know why I said it like that. I said that something similar. I said that in my Risk of Rain video. Why do I say prices like that? The game on Steam is only £19.99 right now. This is at a time when plenty of other games were releasing at 50 quid. I mean, just look at all of these games for an example. And yet, this is a problem because whilst the game is technically more advanced than the first, it's still very much the same deal from the outside as the first. And yet the price tag is doubled, which is even more insulting when you play the damn thing. And it not only hasn't really developed anything that different from the first beyond the visuals, but it's actually missing content that was present in the older, cheaper game. Now, it is worth mentioning that the game is available on Games Pass, which honestly, if you're really determined on playing this game at some point, it's probably the only way that your bank account will actually be happy with your decision. And if you are one of these unique people, I'm about to talk about the story now, which is literally the only thing that this game has going for it. So, spoiler warning for the rest of this video. Don't fucking at me in the comments, one of the 3 people that leave comments. Feel free to vacate yourself from this video, and I promise I won't make fun of you after you're gone. Okay, now that those dweebs have gone. Let's talk about this mess. So, Senua's Saga starts with a recap of the first game, which looks especially cinematic with my cursor accidentally in half of the cutscene until I realized and actually moved it. Oh, shit. We fought through hell only to end up in an all-new kind of hell, being a woman in the past. Oh no. After being so daring as to voice our opinion, we were immediately enslaved. But not to worry, we planned this whole shindig so we could end up being taken to the lands of the slavers to try and overthrow them and free the people. And I might say we're off to a fabulous start.
Amazing plot right off the bat.
He's dead. He's straight up dead.
Some people die thanks to something that we had no control over and we're upset about it. Take note of this because you better believe that this plot point shows up again in this story. So after spending 5 minutes figuring out how to climb up a small ledge and blabbering on about how we desperately need a sword, only to then see someone with a weapon, I mean, I think it was actually a sword, and they fall off a cliff, and we're told that we should go and check the bodies, so obviously this is where we get our first sword. Nope. There's nothing there. Oh, when do we... Here's one! Oh, okay. That was a little weird. Surprise, homie alert! We injure this slaver guy called Thorgester, and embark on a journey to challenge his father, who runs this slave and apparent sacrificial operation to bring peace and freedom to the lands and the people. Then some other stuff happens, like we meet this guy and he's nice. There's like some cults trying to summon giants, apparently. We spend a major portion of the game by ourselves, figuring out how to fight giants, which turns out is done by not fighting them and just kind of learning their full names, so we can officially sign like their death certificate after they just sort of appreciate that we learn their names, and they just kind of die, I guess. We also leave Thorgester and this guy alone for like an unspecified amount of time, and Thorgester eventually just kind of isn't bad anymore, I guess. I think he must have figured that out with... Jesus Christ, what is this guy's name? Fargrimmer. It's Fargrimmer. Anyway, we go from place to place. There's another woman we meet up and we fight some guys. More people die from things that, again, aren't our fault. And us actively being there means we do save way more people than if we weren't there and they just got butchered. But again, I guess we feel bad about that. This happens a lot. She'll get over it, don't worry. Then something. There's a magic forest. We get to Thorgester's dad and... he kills Thorgester, I guess. Oh no. And we then kill his dad, and it's like the only boss battle in the game, basically. It fucking sucks. We think about taking his place and being evil for some reason, and then we don't do that because duh, and then the game ends. So okay, I'm gonna get a little more serious here, because if my last two videos are anything to go by, you'll know that I love nerding out about story and themes. I just wish this game had some. Oh, shit. Now, look, yes, this game does explore similar themes to the first, and I'm sure if you were to analyze it fully, there'd be some stuff, but guess what? It's hard to want to delve any deeper when what's on the surface level is so bloody shallow and nonsensical. In the first game, the story used creative avenues like Senua's perceptions of reality, the voices, and the monsters we faced to explore Senua's past and overcome the stigma and superstitions surrounding her condition, as well as the awful things that have happened to her and her loved ones, and how she pushes through to the future, ending in her realizing she is more than just her condition and her tragedies, and can use her strength to help others not have to go through anything like she's had to. It's a transition from the traps of the inner realms of her own twisted mind and people like her father that are trying to keep her defined by that, to her realizing that she can shape her own reality and use her unique perspective on the world to push forwards and through the backwards twisted beliefs of the time to help others and herself. It's a deep analysis of mental health and its place within our society, and how we view it from both the outside and when it's a part of us. An ultimately positive, triumphant narrative that leaves you with a lot to think about. You play the second game and it's fucking nothing like this. When you start up the second game, it seems like the developers are using this as a jumping off point for this narrative, with the game starting similarly on a boat like the first. However, this time we're not introducing Senua's detaching from the human world of her own free will and her being all by herself. Rather, we're surrounded by others being taken slave in the real world, telling us that this story is really going to focus on the human aspect of Senua's journey, how we're going to overcome real world horrors which can be even more sadistic and evil than those of the literal hell dimension from the first game. However, as this game progresses, key human elements are rushed, like Thorgest's redemption.
Oh my. Someone's been acting very nice lately.
And subsequent death, which both could have meant a lot more to the story and this theme of human evils. Here's a guy that literally enslaves us and tries to kill us at the start of the game, yet we spare his life and try to show him the error of both his and his father's ways. He learns about the importance of human life, no matter the circumstances of where you live, your social standing, or how tasty you might be to a giant. His death at the expense of truly changing for the better, killed by the very thing that originally caused him to become so misguided, could have been a heartbreaking motivator going into the final and pretty much only boss of the game, who himself is the ultimate representation of human evil in this story. Essentially, defeating him could have shown us the very real world struggles and sacrifices that are often required to triumph over evil and do right by both yourself and your fellow man. And this shows, whilst it's never the easy choice, human decency, compassion, and fighting for one another rather than against one another will always be the right choice. It could have made a game worth remembering and, God forbid, even worth playing. But unfortunately, much like my bowel movements after eating a little too much Mexican food the other day, this shit stinks, and you mostly remember it for the wrong reasons. It doesn't ruin the meal that came before it, but it certainly makes you question why one must follow the other. The game also suffers from issues like the game's major and minor NPCs' relationships with us and the locations we travel to. They don't feel very lived in or authentic to what the game is trying to tell us that they mean to us, especially when it comes to the average schmucks who we're supposedly supposed to be so needlessly desperate to save that their few deaths throughout the game, which again would be much worse if we weren't there helping, cause us us to break down and cry like a Taylor Swift fan watching their queen eat their own snot. And we even consider becoming a ruthless dictator at the end so that we can stop them from suffering. What the fuck does that mean? Look, essentially, the game flirts around the edges of telling a more human story with more human evils at play to show us that the realm of hell from the last game is just as dangerous and deadly as the real world, which should be really terrifying and prolific as this world is real. And in the same ways that the first game's story and themes are so relevant to today just as much as the kooky time period that they're set in, the second game should have focused hard on hitting even harder to home. We may not experience human sacrifices, slavery.
Are you sure about that?
And the fear of being chomped down on by a giant like a goddamn bag of gummy bears.
Allegedly.
But we experience the follies of human greed and our goals to dominate one another. What it's like to be at the whim of corporations and governments that don't give a shit about you and can demand so much from you that it hardly feels like you're living at all. It could take this universal struggle against the more powerful and question how we choose to overcome it. Do we work within the system and screw everyone else over to rise as high as we can, like Thorgester's father? Or could this game have used its story and Senua's story to tell us that thing I said earlier? I already said it.
Whilst it's never the easy choice, human decency, compassion, and fighting for one another rather than against one another will always be the right choice.
Yeah, that. I don't know, man. I should have grown out my mustache for this game because, as a wise man once said, it's all just a little...
disappointing.
I got a few more things to whinge about, so let's get on with it. We don't want this video ending up being longer than the actual game's playtime because this shit is free. And speaking of this game's comparisons to a YouTube video, you mostly just watch this shit. Now, by this point, we're all no strangers to the classic term, a playable movie, something that's attributed to a lot of games over the years. There's always an argument around these types of games that, depending on how hard they lean into the more cutscene-focused movie-like type games and vice versa, and what that means for, you know, like the industry as a whole and blah blah blah, you know, all of that shit. So, where does this masterpiece fall on that scale? Well, let's just put it like this. If you find watching a YouTube video and leaving a supportive comment as engaging as playing a video game, then you'd probably still be better off just leaving a comment and fucking liking and subscribing to this channel right this second. Yeah, this game isn't really much of a game, it would seem. Now, you know this game is a cinematic game, as you'll notice that just like what my Lord and Savior Nakey Jakey had to say about cinematic games,
That those esteemed 10 out of 10 hold forward while your character shimmies through a tight crack games just can't quite scratch. The only thing they scratching is that tight crack on their ass.
there's a lot of cutscenes, a lot of holding up on the controller and barely moving the camera to progress whilst you're talked at by both the voices, and the other characters at the exact same time, which definitely doesn't wear off after the first, 5 seconds. And combat that... Oh my fucking god. I think I'm gonna lose my fucking mind talking about the combat of this game. Combat that takes a fat, stinking Mexican-fueled shite all over the first game. Now, the first game wasn't, like, revolutionary or anything, but it did this really cool thing where the game didn't ever teach you anything about the controls or combat from a controls informational standpoint, that is. There's no skill tree or unlocking of any advanced techniques as the game progresses. You simply experiment yourself as the game goes on, and as Senua in the story becomes stronger and more confident in her quest, the player too is more proficient and skilled at the combat, meaning you grow just as Senua is growing, really adding to the immersion and your motivation throughout the game to keep fighting on no matter how overwhelming the odds get. The player really feels like Senua, in big part due to the game's approach to combat. So what does the second game decide to do? What? Much like a road sign for the city of Birmingham, this warned of trouble ahead. Why is the parrying window so bollocks when it was so clear and satisfying in the first game? Why can't you fight more than one enemy at a time unless the game finds ways to limit you to one enemy at a time in a really stupid way, even when you are surrounded by enemies? Just attack her all at once. Why are you tagging each other in and out like it's a pro wrestling match? You basically just keep slashing away or avoiding strikes until you can hit E and win every time. And oh my goodness gracious, Christ on a bike, butter with your mudder making you a brand new brother, why the fuck does every enemy tap you on the shoulder or somewhat passively surprise you to change the 1v1 to being with them? Look at how many times this happens!
Kiss me.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
My god, this game costs £50. Now, I originally had planned to talk about the animations, graphics, sound, music, you know, shit like that. Because, yeah, the animations are top-notch, the graphics are insanely impressive, even on my busted-ass PC. And the sound design, score, and of course, acting is all some of the very best I've seen in a video game. It truly feels like a next-gen game from these perspectives. But unfortunately, none of this can detract from the past
26 minutes and 10 seconds
of this video. And at the end of the day, this stuff can all be as close to perfection as possible, but if the story, gameplay, and all the other points that I've raised throughout this video are packaged along with that, then this game cannot rise above the first, and it definitely can't stand on its own 2 feet. I'll be honest here, much like this franchise, I'm running out of steam. The first game meant so much to me at the time that I first played it, and still means so much to this day, and I can't wait to play through it again and experience everything that made it resonate with me so much that first time all over again. This sequel was a game so long in the making that I fear the fanbase has made better versions of what it could have been in their heads long before the game's release this year. Much like I know I have myself in my own mind, and my ideas literally go off of what the game was almost able to achieve itself based on what it set up in those first few hours, but ultimately couldn't live up to in the end. I really liked the idea that the giants aren't just beasts to be defeated in combat, especially because the combat is so wank, and that instead we have to sympathize with their human mistakes and help them overcome the evils that have trapped them in this form, both if they are the evildoers themselves or just victims of this cruel world. We literally have to learn their human names, understand their stories, and help them to find peace, to be put to rest once and for all for the good of themselves and for everybody else. It's exactly on point with the themes I've said this game should have explored more, and it's another tragic example of just how close this game is to being something better, potentially even greater than the first. But unfortunately, the game suffers from an identity crisis, and maybe much like the giants of the game, needs to be reminded of its own name. Its legacy based on exploring deeper themes that can connect to today's society and can perhaps even teach us how to do better in a world that seemingly wants to destroy us and turn us against one another. I love that something as dumb as video games can, if done right, achieve such a profound impact on us, something that the world of film has shown us time and time again. Yet, with this game trying its very best to be just like a film in so many ways, rather than an actual game, rather than a sequel to what came before, rather than a well-priced, driven, and focused project, rather than something confident in its own identity. Instead, we're left with this.
Oh, they're away, and Gatling got away brilliantly, and he's ahead of the field at the moment, and Bolt going very, and here comes Usain Bolt! Usain Bolt storming through, he takes it again! Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant!
Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga is a game that suffers from an identity crisis, and unfortunately, none of those identities were able to lead to a great game, sequel, or product for the most important members of society. Gamers. Hey, thank you very much for watching this shit show of a video. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more, please, you know, oh God, all the usual shit. You can hit the subscribe button so YouTube can maybe tell you when I next release a thing in like the next 4 months. Making this video was surprisingly difficult alongside a lot of personal life shit and, you know, shit I obviously won't get into here. But needless to say, this has been one of the weirdly challenging projects that I've done so far, and I don't know, I really hope that, you know, someone enjoyed it. I don't get a lot of comments or traction, but what little I have been getting has been like nothing but supportive. So honestly, that's helped me more than a lot of you would probably know. So for that, I'm extremely gay. I was about to say extremely gay. I'm extremely grateful, no matter how silly that sounds. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and I can't wait to bring out more dumb stuff for whoever's willing to watch it. Cheers, guys. Catch you on the beans. Unless you don't have beans for breakfast. Or if you, maybe if you eat beans during these videos. Leave a comment if you eat beans while watching Mr. Reference videos. Lord knows I fucking do.